Thank you so much, Professor Irene Ng, for helping us to understand the complex relationships among the three main causes of poverty: individual, situational, and institutional, and for giving us a glimpse into the multiple challenges of low-income families. I now hand over to Jane Fu from Caritas to chair the question and answer session. And I do hope all of you would make use of the mics. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Helen. And thank you, Irene, for such an insightful and thought-provoking presentation. So we have now come to the answer and questions segment of her presentation. There are two mics along the aisle, which we can have the participants going to the mics to ask their questions. Or alternatively, you could also write your questions on the papers which you can find in your folders, and our ushers will go and collect the questions from you, and then we will read out the questions for Irene to respond. But of course, we will address the questions that are coming directly from the participants first. So I will present you with the first question, Irene. You mentioned about, you gave us the scenario, the graph of, how in terms of where we are, Singapore, compared to the other countries on the income inequality graph. Singapore is well known for emulating countries which are good in doing certain things. So for example, Goh Chok Tong came up with, emulating Switzerland. He wanted to achieve the Swiss standard of living. Do you think it's worthwhile to, actually also, ask them to consider looking at some of the Scandinavian countries, because they are definitely doing very well in terms of, tackling income inequalities, and that should be actually taken, as something that they want to work towards?
Right. I think more and more people who are looking at poverty and inequality situation in Singapore are looking more to the Scandinavian model. And the Scandinavian countries are the ones that are the true welfare states. They really have this universal belief in how much people should have as a minimum, and that minimum is very high. So proponents have really kept going back to the Scandinavian model. But at the same time, the Scandinavian welfare system is also converging more towards also emphasizing work ethic and requiring that people show work effort in their very expanded welfare system. So I think around the world there's convergence. I agree that we should look at the Scandinavian model because these are economies that continue to be competitive despite their welfare states. But at the same time, we also want to be mindful, and our political leaders do remind us of this, which is we do have a different context. Right? Singapore is a small global economy in Asia, whereas Scandinavian countries are in North Europe, right? And the climate is different, they have resources, they have oil. That said, again, I think Finland is a smaller economy, and there's some similarities between us that we can learn more from. At the same time, not just Scandinavia, I think Taiwan and South Korea are doing a lot more these days, and even Hong Kong is moving there as well. So as we are comparing, we also look at what our East Asian neighbors are doing.
Okay, I'm not sure whether there are anybody who would want to have, yes, there is a gentleman there. You can go to the mic.
My name is Friar Michael de Cruz. Professor Irene, thank you very much for those statistics. I wanted to find out in your research, when you gave those statistics, was it Singaporeans, as in a pink IC, or was it just our society?
Pink IC.
Pink IC, thank you very much. The second question I wanted to ask is, were there any breakdowns of either racial or religious affiliation to poverty? Because sometimes there's a saying that Christianity tends to be in the middle class level, and I was wondering whether there were challenges in that arena. Thank you.
If I recall, there wasn't so much difference by race or religion. Yeah, the key difference was, I think I've highlighted one in terms of poorer respondents. Another one was in terms of political affiliation, actually, but I didn't feel that it was relevant for today to share about that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, over there.
Thank you for your presentation. I want to pick up what was said earlier from a different perspective.
Could we have your name, please?
Sorry, Ajit Hazra.
Roger Azza, thank you.
You mentioned in one of your earlier slides that there is a relationship between, or there's a link of race and religion with poverty. So I wanted to know a bit more about that. And then it's interesting, his question came and you suggested there isn't much in the data that you did. So I wonder what it means, because I wonder whether sometimes that is part of the prejudice that comes about, that there is a relationship, and what does that mean in Singapore? Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, there's kind of irony. In my survey, I didn't find significant differences by religion, but I think I am putting to you that if we are people of faith, we should be caring more about poverty than the survey results show. Yeah. Does that answer your question? By race, there were some little bit of differences, but not much, and I didn't think to share today.
I just want to raise that sometimes when you look at the newspapers, there's a suggestion that certain groups of people are poor, and there's often a link to race. And that is what I suppose I'm questioning, whether in Singapore we associate poverty with certain races and therefore create a misimpression that is a race that is bound to be poor.
Yeah, it's true that in terms of those who are poor, there's overrepresentation of minority races in Singapore. Yeah. What I was presenting was about attitudes towards poverty. So I think, yeah, this is, well, another, conference. You can have debate about the role of race in poverty. Yeah, that's really quite a mix of factors. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep, over there, gentlemen.
Good morning, Professor Irene Ng. My name is Patrick. I'm a conscientized Catholic. Now, my question to you, I am very inspired by your value propositions. Unfortunately, my experience among my fellow Catholics is that we are in such a comfort zone, especially those of us who are very wealthy, and some of us, not me of course, we tend to flaunt our wealth. I have been to Bukit Merah with a social worker 2 years ago. I met an old lady, 98 years old, and she spoke to me in Hokkien. Translation: 4 of my sons, I raised them, I educated them through university level, and now they have abandoned me. I think there's a moral point to this. I'm not trying to prolong the question, but I think most of us, and to be honest, even Catholics, are too much in our comfort zone. And just now in the video, one young man said, the level of poverty is almost zero. I beg to differ. The level of poverty is still existing in Singapore, and that is why there is this segment of the seminar. Please enlighten us as how we can lift them out from the poverty trap. Thank you.
I was going to say thank you for your sharing, I agree. I think it is a community effort. So I see myself as a role in terms of sharing with you my convictions, and hopefully you would also respond. I do think that in terms of government policies, we can do more. And there is a role for us as Singaporeans to voice out that we agree that we want to do more. Right? And then also, not just government policies, I think through Caritas being involved. Yeah.
One final point I would like to make here, Professor Ng, is that creating an awareness of poverty in Singapore, as you say in your value proposition, is the moral obligation of everyone, including Catholics. I thank you.
Is it the moral obligation of everyone,
Including Catholics.
including Catholics?
Yes, yes.
Yes, that would be a resounding yes. Okay, we have the lady over there at the mic. We
Yes,
have your
hi.
question.
Hi, my name is Sumei. Actually, I went to the same university that you went to overseas, so I completely understand. That was actually a civil society awakening for me in many ways, but I was not Catholic back then. Anyway, my question is, I'm not sure if this is the area of study you are involved in, but I was really curious as to in countries you want to emulate. We don't want to go to the other end of the spectrum, say, for the Scandinavian countries, they have a lot of different other contextual factors that make them a welfare society. But for other countries, say like South Korea or Japan, that we want to move more towards the left, right? We want to emulate. Is there like a model? Have you done studies on percentages of government funding versus religious group contributions versus other, sort of civil society organizations in terms of contribution for the poor? And where do we stand as Singapore right now in relation to those proportions? Thanks.
I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers. I don't know whether Caritas or some other people might have.
Yeah, in terms of the contribution and the percentage
I
of
guess
the civil societies in
the
reducing poverty.
genesis of the question is really a lot of Singaporeans talk about government needs to do more. I mean, we saw in the videos, oh, government, 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 right? And then this conference is about us doing more as well. But how much, how far away are we from a target? What does good look like for us in terms of contributing?
I think generally the numbers, and I think NVPC did a study about volunteerism and all that. I think in terms of giving, Singaporeans do give. It's in terms of getting involved where we are lower, and I think government spending-wise, definitely we are on the lower end around the world, and that's why I keep saying that I think we can do more in terms of social welfare and social safety net. So I think generally we can do more. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Certainly. Okay, I do have a question here. Perhaps I just read it out first. Professor, your presentation gave a good perspective on the current state of poverty, but can you share with us more long-term trends? How has poverty changed over time? Is social mobility improving or worsening? Recent Department of Statistics indicate social mobility has improved, but I'm not convinced.
The tough thing about doing this kind of research in Singapore, we don't have numbers, we don't have access to numbers. So in my research, I look at aggregate numbers and the institutions we have and compare to overseas research what they have found. And so this is not research-based, but it is research-based, but not numbers-based. My feeling is that social mobility has declined in Singapore since independence. And it's kind of natural because in the past, we were a nation that most people were not educated, and now most people are uneducated, right? And so in the past, a laborer's son could, say, become a lawyer or become someone in an educated job. But today, I think there's more persistence between, say, a doctor's son becoming a doctor or another professional, whereas, say, a hawker's son might have a polytechnic degree or some other, polytechnic diploma or some other degree, but not doctors or lawyers. Although we hear some stories of this, yeah. And I think, and that's also another story there. When we look at poverty, though, I do see the kinds of multiple challenges the families face and just getting by. And to me, if they want to talk about the next generation, we need to do more to help them for the next generation, rather than just helping them get by. Sorry that I
Thank
can't
you.
give a more fuller answer to that.
We have a gentleman over there. Yep. Yeah, just.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Timothy D'Souza. I'd like to thank Caritas in particular for focusing attention on this special topic. Once in every 2 years, if we get something like this, it's really good. I just would like to share an experience with my auntie who has lived in Denmark for 65 years. She is a widow. She is 99 years old, and she has lived in the same block for 30 years. The Danish government is now cutting back on welfare services. It's one of the leading governments, and they have taken this very difficult task. It's a very difficult decision that they made, but they're cutting back. And for the people in her block, it means that they don't have cleaning services as regularly as before. And there are a number of other things which older people in her block who have become used to now do not have. What has there been, what response from them to this particular problem? One of collective help. They help each other. They haven't said, look, we need more from the government. They've said, no, we'll help ourselves. And these are people in their 80s and their 90s who have been used to this kind of mentality, this great social example in a Scandinavian help.
Can we have your question? Thank you for your sharing, because we're
Okay.
running short of time.
My point is this, I'll just cut to the chase, that relying on government as we move forward in trying to solve this problem is not the answer. I think, all right, as we've seen one cycle, the lesson to be learned is that we have to rely on ourselves. We've got to look to each other to help ourselves, not the government. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have just one last question, because the lady has been waiting there. Just one last question over there. Yep.
Hi, Irene. My name is Irene from Caritas Singapore. You know, I refer to your slide of multi-stress, low-income family, and I think that slide clearly showed that the impact of low income is multifactorial. So I really want to ask you, in your opinion, how can we structure a more holistic approach towards partnering the poor? And in the context of Singapore today, what do you think the challenges will be? Should we take a more holistic approach? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely holistic approach in terms of tackling all the multiple factors. For example, having a case manager that is able to work with different agencies on all those different issues. Right? So in my research, I've been trying to advocate for that more rather than like different agencies doing different things. And I want to also thank the gentleman for your point, which is what I'm trying to say, that I feel that in Singapore, our government needs to do more, it's true, but already the government is already expanding, right? But I think ideologically as a society, our government still holds on very strongly to an individualistic model, and ourselves too, in terms of churched people and unchurched people. So I agree with the gentleman that what I'm appealing today is that we have to really think in terms of our moral obligations, also in terms of the current social realities in coming alongside in solidarity with poor people. And I think, for example, one small step in the current system is how we give financial assistance, for example, whether it is ComCare officers or social workers, Do we come at it with a more, you are responsible, you have to show your resilience, you have to show your motivation, or more a different way of case management, which is more empathic and saying, we understand your struggles, want to understand what is it that you're facing, how can we work together on this? So in bringing the two questions together, I think it is as a community that we work together with the poor, and not saying just you have to show your deservingness before we can help you as a society. And the church has to do more than saying, yeah, the government needs to do it. Yeah, thanks for your sharing.
Definitely there is recognition of that there has to be a holistic approach, and that's the reason why Caritas has come to build the Agape Village, which later on in the day, this will be presented more in depth by Jeanette, the chairman of the steering committee for the Agape Village. And definitely, there is recognition that we can't rely on the government alone to solve the problem of poverty in Singapore. All of us have to play a part in it. So thank you, Professor Irene, for your sharing with us. And thank you for all the questions that you have put forth. Thank you. Hand over to Helen.
Once again, please join me to thank Professor Irene Ng and our chairperson, Jane. Friends, before we go for tea break, please allow me to make 5 announcements. 1, there is a car that is blocking the exit. And the refuse truck will be coming in a while. So if you are the owner of SG 4651Y, please move your car. Secondly, those who are in a hurry to get out, the exit on top does not work. It's only this exit and the middle exit. So if you run up there, you see a dead end. Thirdly, please remember, we know you love the tea and the coffee that we will be serving, but there is a reminder from Catholic Junior College to please not bring the drinks or the food into this beautiful auditorium. 4th or 5th, so many already. The next one is, there are beautiful big posters in the foyer, and each poster represents the work of one of the affiliates of Caritas. Please do take a look. Our next session begins at 11:30. However, at 11:25, if you're back here earlier, we're showing you another video clip. Tea is served in the foyer. Thank you.